All right, Jen, you ready?
Yes.
Great, welcome everybody to your city council. Welcome everybody to your city council meeting. I'm Mayor Blackburn. I'm gonna call us to order. First thing we're gonna all do is turn off the cell phones. Then we're gonna take a moment to realize that the land where we're doing our business, folks have been living and working for many centuries before our people came, and that's an important thing to honor and remember and pause and reflect on, I think. Then we're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Abigail, do we have any agenda additions or corrections?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Mike Caldwell has signed up. Hi, Sean. Please come and speak to us if you'd like. So the microphone is already green, so you're good to go. Just tell us your name and address and what you'd like us to know, Mike.
Mike Caldwell, owner of Stonehenge Gardens, 3405 Wine Country Avenue. It was brought to my attention that there's a potential name change. That happened to our business and it was horrific. It used to be 3405 Cascade Avenue because we owned the entire road that came off of Cascade and came up to us. It was then co-opted and became Mount Adams, which is a freaking nightmare. And then it became Wine Country for 1,600 feet, 660 feet, which we own. And then it goes into Country Club. Great. We've spent 14 years living with this and talking people in from Safeway, from Les Schwab, from downtown, who have entered the address, which goes into a spider web of internet services, mostly ran in Bangalore, India. And they send people, a lot of people end up in Mount Hood. There's 3405 up on Parkdale. And so when you have people who have taken the Mount Adams, driven past us, 26 miles into the wilderness, and then they call us and we have to guide them back and buy them champagne and get them to our restaurant. And we're just trying to provide a great experience for people in Hood River. And it's really frustrating that people still to this day, after the original name change, which was from 3405 Cascade, became 3405 Wine Country. We deal with DMV all the time. It is our home. And so that's a completely different name change there for us as well. And then we have people who live with us, our children, since COVID. Everybody has children living with them now since COVID. And so all their addresses, all of their names, everything is 3405 Wine Country. So to change that, and I haven't heard why, I know that there's going to be a development eventually to the left at the top of Mount Adams going towards Rand Road. But there's already precedent in town. When you're driving on Oak Street, it becomes Cascade and you don't even know. You're completely unaware as you're driving past Safeway, it becomes Cascade. No signs, no changes, no nothing. Nobody knows about it. When you're on other roads in town, they simply become a different name. And so Country Club right now should be still down at the exit, down at 3405 Cascade. That's where Country Club, we were happy with that. But the fire department said their people, and I swear to God, wouldn't be able to find us if there was a fire because the address would be wrong. They were confused because there would have been too many addresses on Country Club. And I think we all know that it's a small town. There's 3 fires a year. They'd find us, they'd see the smoke. We had a fire there this year. They got there just fine in plenty of time. So I don't know that that's necessarily a great excuse because it is a small place. So anyway, I'm up here venting due to the cost that it is to us, the cumbersome nature of changing our address and affecting all the websites. And you guys know as a business owner, there's hundreds and thousands of websites that creep and crawl. We have to change our address weekly because they come in, the spiders that run the internet, and they go for our mailing address, which is 2149 Cascade Avenue, which is Postal Annex. Because it became such a nightmare, we couldn't get mail to Stonehenge anymore because it became so cumbersome. And so now people are calling us from Safeway, like, hey, how do we find you? We don't know why we're here. And so just trying to speak our mind and say, in these really ridiculous, hard economic times, please don't change this name of our street. It's 3405 Wine Country for 1,600 feet. We own 600 of it. We would really appreciate the fact that you just leave us alone. Change the name at Mount Adams. When it goes to the left, make it co-primary, or co is what they originally wanted it to be because it's one of the founding families. Awesome. I love paying tribute. Name it after a tribe. We'll support that in a heartbeat. But we're 600 feet. And Wine Country doesn't work for us yet, and it's been 14 years, but we really don't want to go through another change. It would really be a burden, and no one needs that right now. So thank you so much for your time.
We have a presentation. Amy.
Mayor, I'm going to help Amy with the PowerPoint in just a second, but before we do that, I wanted to note that our normal city attorney is he's out of town right now. So Chris Green is with us. He's just appeared on the screen. He's our backup attorney. So just wanted you to know that we have a guest star with us tonight.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me.
It's already down there, yep. And then just need to share screen here. You totally know how to do this. I'm not sure. Oops, click over here to get it. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you again. I'm Amy Schlappe. I'm your face. Oh, not really new, but hi. How you doing? Amy Schlappe, the Executive Director of CAT. I'm here. How do I? It's not. Oh, there we go. I am here today to provide an update on our informal taxi group that we have that I have with Maddie Green, Gordon, and Mark. Just give you a quick reminder of why we were formed. We were asked by all of you to work together and gather some information about current capacity for the transportation services that are available to the public in the city of Hood River, and also increase the awareness of those options that are available. So we've met several times to discuss how to increase capacity, increase awareness, and collect data to give you guys some more information. So we created some marketing materials, as you may have seen around town. There are some posters and coasters that were distributed to local businesses, hotels, and they're posted at bus shelters and at the CAT station too. It's actually been really helpful at the CAT station to have an easy just little coaster to distribute that has all the different taxi options when public transit maybe isn't an option for folks. All right, a taxi stand has been created. Thank you to all of you for helping make that happen. A couple of pictures from this last weekend from when Maddie was using it. We've collected some data. Admittedly, though, it was not a lot of data due to just some limitations for being able to collect data and the busy season for the taxi providers. We did, however, provide or collect about roughly 9% of taxi rides were referred to another provider, denied because request was outside of operating hours, or a rider rejected the ride because of the time frame that was given. And then just wanted to give an overview of what the operation hours are for the public transit, but also for the different taxi providers. The taxi providers did increase their availability and their capacity and purchase new vehicles as well. So with that, I actually just wanted to give Maddie the opportunity to just say a couple words on behalf of the taxi providers of what their thoughts are on how to move forward.
Can you leave it on that last slide? I feel like my brain didn't have enough time to look at it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Test.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to read from a prepared statement to start with and then open it up a little bit more loosely. Greetings, city councilors, staff, and Mayor Blackburn. Again, thank you for your dedication to public service and for taking the time to consider and weigh in on local transportation issues in our community. As you likely know, my name is Matthew Barman, also known as Matty Green, and I am the owner and operator of a pedicab, delivery, taxi, and shuttle service that has been successfully operating with Hood River as our base since 2018. I've also come here acting as an informal spokesperson for our coalition of 4 local taxi shuttle businesses. Our group has increased our collaboration and coordination over the last year, and we have been very appreciative of the contributions made to our improvement efforts by Amy, by Katie Cadleb of Visit Hood River, Emily Reed of Columbia Gorge Tourism Alliance, and Abigail, the city manager. Thank you for helping. Continuing our discussions of ways to meet the rising demand for public and private transportation services in our community and region, I'd like to update you on a few of the developments we've noted since we last became before the council in the spring. We are striving to meet the mobility needs of our increasing local population and the number of visitors by adding to our fleets, as you'll see up here, bringing on more drivers and expanding our hours of operations. We continue our efforts to market and educate residents, service industry owners, and staff about local transportation options through print, through personal interactions, and electronic means. We appreciate and begin to utilize the dedicated taxi stand on Cascade Avenue that the council authorized and city staff has installed. We feel like we are meeting the rising demand for our services and would like to continue on this trajectory. The one hesitancy among most of us in the transportation industry is to invest further in our efforts is the increasing presence of Uber activities in our town. And as we clarified, it was a little uncertain in the spring that the current ordinance and codes do not pertain to transportation networks that include Lyft and Uber. So far, Lyft hasn't operated their app here, but as of 2.5 years ago, Uber has. And until this year, we haven't noticed much activity in drivers on the Uber app, but myself and my staff, and I know some of the other drivers are monitoring the Uber app and seeing what's going on with their presence and movement and things of that such. So they are operating here, and it seems like there's an increase in operations, both maybe from local residents driving, but also those from out of town. We've seen plates from Texas, from California coming here and driving people around. So for us, it's a disruptive force in the transportation system here because they're halfway operating. They're not fully operating as robust as they do in cities. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of missed rides or rides that are canceled at the last minute among Uber drivers. They're not noting on their vehicles that they are with Uber. There's no signage. There's also, we've detected maybe the activity of a sort of central dispatcher of a Uber person, and then they collect rides and then send them out to other cars to go get it. Then we also hear reports of people taking Uber through the app first and then getting the phone number of that driver and getting rides from them throughout the weekend or however long they're here with that driver, which is essentially acting as a taxi. So that is clearly against breaking the law and against ordinances. But mostly it's made it there's a lot of uncertainty on people who are visiting here or using these services because they don't know if they're going to show up or not. And then they call us frantically looking for a ride to the airport to catch their plane that they're going to miss because Uber didn't show up. And they tell them an hour before their scheduled ride, they're not going to do it. So it's hard for us, of course, because it's a competitor, a large behemoth competitor with vast marketing capability, but also it makes a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace because it's not clear if they're working or not and who's working. So we run it over and over with both us and the consumer, a lot of confusion. So we're coming here to ask you to help us clarify this, whether they should be operating here or not in the first place, and you have the powers to do that, to ban them from operating here, or have them join the taxi drivers in a more regulated environment where they're permitted like we are, their markings are like we are, they have the same insurance requirements that we do. They have background checks and vehicle inspections and the like. So that going forward, we know where we stand and we're to invest our capital, our efforts to expand our services, or and know how many players are going to be in the market and how they're operating. So we propose maybe a working group that would include us to come up with some ideas to amend the ordinance, the taxi ordinance, to reflect the reality of the 21st century, that there are transportation network companies now creeping out and away from larger cities into smaller towns such as ours. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Matt.
Today. Thank you so much.
Questions, comments, people? Nice.
Yeah, can you help us understand how many individuals were surveyed?
That was about 600.
I'm sorry, ma'am, please come to the microphone so people online can hear.
So yeah, so it was limited data. It was about 657 rides that information came from. And it was about 57 of those were fell underneath either the ride was given to another provider, the rider had called, or the client had called wanting to get a ride outside of operation hours, or the time frame didn't work for them.
And of those 57 riders, they were referred to the existing list of organizations here on the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any sort of, sorry, I have a couple questions. Was there marketing to county businesses, or were these surveys just for city businesses or city individuals?
So sorry, just to clarify, it wasn't necessarily surveys. This was anytime somebody called in, this was the data that was collected.
So we don't have a way of knowing if it was within the city limits or somebody calling within the county, for example?
We did collect some of that information, but I did not necessarily collate with that specific piece of information.
Okay. Thank you.
Just in the spirit of, we're trying to make some data, driven decisions here, right? So, so I guess playing upon a class as well. So help me understand. So, are those all the calls that came in the summer, or is it just a sample?
No, so that
How was the sample chosen? Was it the ones that we remembered to record, or sometimes we were too busy? Like, was there any methodology for that at all? Or?
So that was at the beginning of the summer. It was the end of the spring and the summer. My understanding was just too busy after that in order to collect that data.
So when did it end?
I would have to go back and double check that data to understand that.
Is it for now from you?
And if you're looking for those specific ones, I am happy to write down those very specific questions, and I'm happy to respond. Having that very specific data that you're looking for, I'm happy to collate the data a little more and look for that and respond and send it to Abigail. Maybe write down. Okay, thank you.
I'm coming into this a little bit late,
Yeah.
but and I doubt this info was collected, but just for the purposes of the record, it's my understanding that what kind of prompted this is about public safety issues regarding, people who, the DUI issue that we have in Hood River, and I was wondering if there was any sort of data about, you know, where these people were requesting pickups from, if they were like establishments that served alcohol, or if it's like, you know, some other reason.
I'd have to double check, but there is the purpose of the trip is entered. And again, that is kind of, it's not necessarily, hey, where are you going to? Where are you coming from? It's making an assumption based on where they were picked up and where they're going to. And any conversations that may have happened that the provider felt comfortable with adding to the data collected.
Great, thank you.
But again, I'm happy to add that as the list of things that I look at and send back.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, I guess in the spirit of that as well, you mentioned working with Katie Catlib, Visit Hood River, et cetera. Some of the original, I guess, complaints that we had heard about ridership later in the evening were from establishments that were trying to get rides for patrons, et cetera. Was there any data collected regarding their response to the new posters that were put up, any of the marketing that was done, the taxi cab stand? How does the business community feel about what had taken place in terms of the differences over the summer?
So that was not necessarily reflected in the data. I mean, I have not talked to the businesses specifically about that. If that is an ask from a city, I'm happy to reach out to a couple of them to see what their feedback is. Unless do you know any off the top of your head? Is there- yeah.
To hear more information that they didn't know about.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the answer, please, Amy?
Sorry. Yes, I know that.
So Matt said.
Matt said that generally it was a positive response when he was out in the community, and they were excited to hear more about what the different transportation options were in the local area.
Yeah, I think, Abigail, for me, it would be helpful to understand, you know, what the reaction's been. So maybe we could talk to Katie and find out if there's a way to get that, because, you know, it's nice to know that there's been, you know, extra vehicles that have been added, except what we're seeing here, but, you know, we're not really seeing the full picture of what the community feels, right? Which is what I think we're trying to get to is, you know, we see that there's some changes that have been made, but how's the community feel about it, et cetera. So I think that would help towards that.
Mark.
Doug said almost everything I was gonna say. I too am happy that each of the companies has added bandwidth and that's super important. I'm struggling with how much council or the city should specify how to test, you know, whether we're doing this or not. So, you know, maybe it's a question to you guys of like, do you want to be told specific questions and then go and find it, or because at the end we're going to end up talking about code, right? You know, and that's sort of we're going to set a policy based on something. So is it a valuable path to ask specific questions or not? Because that I'm certainly willing to come up with a set of questions, but I don't know if we're chasing our tails and we should just talk about code or not. But what do you think?
Mayor, if I may, Amy and I have had a number of conversations about kind of what is the next step and where do we go? So I guess my question to you would be, what more information do you need to make a decision? The summer has passed. I can't make the summer happen again to collect more or specific data. So, you know, what are the things that you would need, you know, if you're not at a point to make any kind of forward movement tonight, what would you need at the next meeting to really be ready to make some kind of decision? Because this group has worked really hard for the last year. It's been more than a year that we've talked about this. So I think the question about what is the business community's reaction been to the increased service, that's a really easy piece for either Amy or I to follow up with. Visit Hood River, I think the first time we talked to them was, it was not the whole Visit Hood River board, it was the Downtown Association board, so we could easily revisit them. We also talked to social service agencies, so we could go back and revisit them. Those were our two big stakeholder groups and see if they have seen a marked difference. So we could definitely do that. Is there any other data that you would need to get to the code conversation in the next meeting, if not tonight?
Folks, we look at how many vehicles are available and how many passengers. House Fest is coming up. This is not enough to meet the demand. And we're just talking about, they're gonna be here within the city limits. We also have to factor in the county, that there's other establishments out there. There isn't enough capacity to meet the demand of folks that we have. And I agree, this group has been working for a year to quantify some data to give us something to work off of. But I don't believe that based off of what we see now, and they could add a couple more, that's gonna be enough.
I agree with Gladys. I think that technology has solved this problem and that we should not beat ourselves up for trying to reinvent the market. I think that we should permit TNCs.
I really appreciate the idea that was brought up on working with these individuals in addition to other stakeholders around what are other ordinances or how to amend an ordinance. But I think at this point, it's again, when the data that we see here that's taken some time to collect lets me know that there isn't enough capacity as is. And this is a public health issue. This is a safety issue. And I agree with the mayor. I think that we at least start looking at what those options are to allow other transportation networks to be here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, you know, one, we know that we have that 9% figure. Two, just like the eye test, I could generally agree with you, Gladys, here, and also just looking at the breakdown of the services, like, again, particularly zeroing percent on DUIs, because that's what prompted this. You know, really taking a look at these services here, the only ones that I see that would, you know, really meet this need is designated driver and head pedicab and taxi. You know, Gorge Taxi says 24/7, 365 when scheduled in advance, but you know, somebody's drinking, they're not necessarily going to be planning ahead all the time. So based on what I see here, I see really 2 services and a total of at most 6 vehicles available on a weekend, late night, you know, bar situation that could meet that demand at present, if I'm not mistaken. Math is not the thing that I'm best at, but.
And of course, what the survey doesn't tell us is people who were like, I can't figure it out. I didn't get a coaster. I didn't see a poster. I'm just a drunk. So, I mean, sorry, but we don't know that number.
I'd also add that, you know, hearing Matt's testimony being about like, well, you know, some of these entities are already operating in the city, and if I'm not giving your testimony incorrect, that it would be better to at least have something codified and know where everybody stands, especially if this is already kind of happening, than it is to be in this in-between kind of nebulous state of whether TNCs are permitted or not.
Great. Here's a problem from my perspective. Here's the problem with just allowing them outright. They do not go through the same background checks that we have our taxi companies go through. They do not follow or abide by the same rules and regs that our companies have to abide by. This is why taxi rules and regs were created in the first place way back in the day, is that there were a bunch of unlicensed, unregulated people driving people around that were unsafe. If we wish to create another unregulated market to do that, cool. But we've reached out to the transportation network companies, and they have yet to respond to us and provide us with what their background process is in any way, shape, or form. We don't know what that is. So, and unless we are going to maybe operate on the same playing field for everyone, I'm not necessarily hip to just open up the doors to anyone just to come in and do it. I don't think that's necessarily fair business practice to allow businesses to be playing on different levels, so to speak.
Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Grant. I think in that respect, I think it's been difficult for the city in the past to get any useful information from Uber, Lyft, anybody they've reached out to. They see us as a small city. They probably don't know that we, have that X amount of more people in the summer, whatever it might be. But I do know that Portland, for example, does have certain restrictions and certain things that people have to go through. And from if memory serves, in the past, when, previous city managers were looking at this, it was kind of like, well, do what Portland does is what they were handed, which the councils at the time didn't respect, right? Because they wanted to make some specific, legislation to make it feel a lot more safe for the operators, for everybody that's taking rides. So, I mean, I agree with Grant that I'd want to get there. I don't know if we will. But I think if we direct staff specifically to what we would feel would be comfortable, no differences between taxis, et cetera. If that lines up with something that's presented to us from the providers, then great, but we might not get there. Other aspect of what's been said here, for me, I think, it was said technology solves this problem, et cetera. We're sort of, I'd love to be able to take data and say, let's buck the trend and keep, Lyft and Uber out of here. I think, like Matt, for example, has been great for this community and is very present and is a great community member. However, I don't see the data that I need to see to be able to buck that trend, right? And I'm not sure if there's a way to collect that or how that is, certainly for me, hearing from the business community would help solidify that, but I'm not sure if they have the data either, right? It's busy in the summer. And it's difficult for them to quantify things. I've heard tonight as well, we see Uber and Lyft in the community. I know a few of us have tried to get Lyfts and Ubers just to see if we could do it, right? And they're on the app and we can see them there, but we can't hail them, right? So there's just not a lot of data that we have here to be able to make decisions, because to Gladys's point, I don't know what adding one vehicle is going to do in the long run. All I have to really go off of is the community seeing, from the changes that have been made, is the community seeing a positive response? Is the police department seeing a positive response? Because I can recall a lot of discussions that I had at the beginning of this debate with, bar owners, operators, people working there, that it was a nightmarish scenario for them after a certain time. If I talk to all of them again and they say it's not a nightmarish scenario anymore, maybe we have a discussion about whether or not we can buck that trend. I know I'm saying a lot here, but yeah, it's number one, difficult for us to make a decision with the data that we have to buck that trend. And number two, it's not even guaranteed that we'll see these operators in the community after we actually provide some direction to staff, which staff at this point sorely needs from us. Mark.
So I think the answer to Grant's question is yes, we want code to be so it's safe and stuff. And two, we want it to be a completely level playing field. So that way, I mean, if Uber won't answer our mail now, as soon as we say you're not in compliance, your drivers are getting tickets, it's all of a sudden they're going to be wanting to talk to us, or they weren't serious about coming out here anyway. So that to me is the right approach, as opposed to writing some TNC friendly code and having a parallel local driver historic code. So ideally, we would just replace taxi with taxi/TNC in our code and be done with it really easily. And then we'll see, right? We'll see how they're being compliant and what's happening. And we could even then encourage them to be part of the solution, as long as they're following the same rules that these guys do. So that would be my proposed path to updating code.
I have a question for you. How would you propose we enforce Uber drivers have background checks in Hood River exclusively or through our same process? If they're coming in from Portland or elsewhere, they would have to go through our certification process before they load up the app and come up here and visit us?
Sure,
How are we going to enforce that?
because we enforce it with tickets. So they're giving,
How?
they're giving a ride. We know that none of them have registered. We're gonna pull over all of them. If 3 of them have registered, we'll know about who those 3 are. Well, I think,
How are we going to fund the police department to monitor those
I don't,
3 vehicles on the Uber app all the time, though?
I think, I mean, last time I used Uber a couple weeks ago, it tells you exactly who the car is that picks someone up.
Yeah, but how are we going to monitor the Uber app all the time and ticket
I don't-
those who aren't already qualified to be here?
I don't
If
know
we're
that
doing it that
we
way.
need to. I think that we'll have a sharp stick, and right now we don't have any stick.
I'm gonna call decorum here a little bit. I didn't love the tone of that conversation.
Okay.
I'd appreciate if you request to speak through the chair. Thank you.
Sorry.
Gladys.
You know, if we can also look at other sorts of codes and policies that we have in the city if we are concerned about DUI rates continuing to go up. Just in general, transportation as a whole, there's barriers. Whether you are a social service agency providing transportation to patients, there are gaps. There's not enough drivers there. There are not enough routes in the upper. I think there's a lot of issues with transportation as a whole. We could also look at, the city is, at least within the city limits, it's pretty flexible. Anybody can go out and drink a beer and walk on the streets and we could regulate that or make codes that be more strict about those pieces right there. So I think there's a lot that can be done around DUI rates as a whole and the concerns for public health. What I see right now is that, again, we don't have capacity to serve 100+ individuals, and we have a variety of events throughout the year besides the summer where individuals have talked to me specifically about requesting a ride and that the driver's at capacity and can't come and pick them up. And so then folks end up making the decision to end up driving while being intoxicated. I agree with some of the points that Grant was making in addition to Doug, but I don't know that having this group or others collect data for another 6 months or another year is going to be beneficial.
Doug.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Gladys just said. I agree with that. I don't think collecting more data in this manner is going to help make any decisions. I would be curious to know, should we have code changes? I know Neil's not here, but Chief Holste, what he feels that he could, how he feels he could enforce, right? Passively. Obviously, we're not going to have task force out there looking for everybody, but it'd be interesting to know how other municipalities deal with this as well. How does Portland deal with this? And I think the ask should be from staff as we're doing this is to get boilerplate. What are the agreements from these providers? What do they look like compared to what we see with taxis today? And we might not even get that, which is what I'm hearing, which is frustrating, but it would be nice to understand what the baseline is and how other municipalities are grappling with this sort of people coming from outside issue.
How many folks agree with Doug's suggestion there that we try to get sort of the ops manual from the TNC so that we could see how we feel about that operating in our city? I got a hand, I got a Doug.
I think Abigail had.
I'm not sure if Councilor Rivera had a question or comment first. I think that's why your hand was raised, but then I had some comments.
I wanted to make a quick comment. In addition to the city, it's how are we collaborating with the county as well? Because there are folks that are coming from the county to the city of Hood River or vice versa. And I think that that's another partner that is crucial to this conversation because it's not just the city of Hood River.
If I could take a second to summarize what I think I have heard as direction for staff. One is business and revisit the stakeholders we saw, just check in with them. It'd be good to close the loop with them regardless. that we look at, sample codes from others. We want one code that would apply to everyone, that we have a consistent playing field for everyone. And that we include the tax cap companies in a consulting role as we do that. That we would address enforcement questions as we talk about this. And then that we include the county and perhaps other partners. I have kept the county and others informed as we are working on this, but they have not, I don't think any of them have had conversations. They're everybody's waiting for Hood River to really take the lead, and then they might follow what we choose to do. And then the last thing was just what are the boilerplate materials or operations manuals and stuff from transportation network companies, and bring that to you for more information. Is that a good summary of what I think I heard?
Thank you, Abigail, for those 6 points of summary. I'm going to try to keep us a little coalesced. So Abigail just made 6 points of summary that she thinks she heard. Gladys.
I cannot recall what the House bill is right now, but maybe Abigail might remember. There is also a very specific bill that applies to the county and farmland. For example, if someone is ordering food that they have to order alcohol, I think that's something that should be addressed and looked at when it comes to the county pieces that.
Then go ahead.
Other way around. You said they have to order alcohol.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you for that.
No.
They have to order, yeah.
There actually is something there with.
That's getting into your stick, Abigail?
I can include that. We've had this conversation with the county. If you are producing wine, a restaurant cannot be the primary business, right? Because you're in an exclusive farm use zone. Therefore, your main business has to be the production and not the retail or the restaurant or whatever. So I know that became an issue in COVID when places where wineries were closed for visits, but they were still doing takeout food. I don't know if that's an issue today, but I can certainly put that on the list of things to research. That's a little bit of a tangent, so I'll add it, but it might not be part of the quote conversation.
So back to Abigail's question that 5 fingers and a thumb I saw. Would we like our staff to do that for us?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you all. And I want to say thanks to Amy and the group. They've worked, I've really appreciated working with you and with your team.
Next, we have the consent agenda. Excuse me. Hello. Okay, hold on. We got a microphone.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna,
I'm
What can I do
Gordon
for you,
with,
sir?
I'm Gordon with Gorge Taxi, and I wanted to clarify a couple of things when I said that we go 24/7, 365. I do amazing amounts of rides at 3 o'clock in the morning to people going to the airport or that are staying late for parties and stuff like that. But ordinarily, we don't do that unless they make some types of arrangements. Every night we go till at least midnight, most nights 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, Shelley Zeman, who owns the taxi, did hire another driver and put another driver on after our last meeting to handle some overflow. She pulled the insurance on the taxi in July because there wasn't enough business to keep both of them going. She couldn't afford to pay somebody when maybe they might get a ride. And that's what happens. Also, Gorgeous Taxi out of the Dalles comes in at least weekend nights and does rides here too. So there's a lot more taxi services than you really think there are. Okay.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next item. Consent agenda. We have the minutes.
There's just 2 little typos that I caught on page 12. It says Hood River County Animal, and I imagine it's supposed to say animal. And then my last name is misspelled on page 12.
But not animal.
Animal.
Those 2 small corrections, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda with the edits that Gladys mentioned.
Moved by Mark,
I'll second.
second by Doug. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Action items, curb ramps.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Adam Schmidt, Public Works Director with City of Hood River. Tonight I am joined by Jay Davenport with Oregon Department of Transportation on Zoom. You will find the cover sheet for the ODOT curb ramps on page 14 and 15 of your packet. This discussion is regarding the 17 sites between along Oak and Cascade that ODOT is constructing curb ramps to update those ADA ramps to current ADA standards. At the July 2023 meeting, Council had asked staff if ODOT had reached out to business owners, property owners that were affected by the future construction of those ramps. And I believe ODOT has since done that. The property donation of the Saruta Park and the 20th and Cascade location, those two pieces of property have been the property that was affected by the curb ramps have been donated. It has been recorded with the Hood River County. So the last thing that we have with the curb ramps is the MOU granting ODOT the access of working in the city right away. So I have Jay with me tonight to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Jay, do you want to say anything to start, or shall we call upon?
No, just a brief introduction for myself. So I've been with the Department of Transportation for 19 years. I'm actually based out of Bend with the ADA program, which is a program specific to these ADA curb ramp mitigation. There's a settlement agreement that is basically repairing 26,000 curb ramps throughout the state. And I recently took over in what we call Region 1, which is Portland metro area, into Hood River, and I'll be administering numerous contracts, consultant contracts, and I have consultants that are both designing and then leading the construction inspection on those. And for this project has 13 contractors looking at bidding this project. It bids on Thursday. It'll close at 9 o'clock, and we'll know who the low bidder is at that time. So,
Thank you, Jay. Ben. I'm sorry, you're talking, or is it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for joining us. Can you help us understand how you're working with either Visit Hood River? How is ODOT marketing that these efforts are taking place in English and in Spanish? What are some platforms that you're all using? Mailers, public signs, social media? How are we letting our community members know of the changes that are about to happen?
yeah, so we have a complete public outreach task with our consultant and with ODOT that they're undertaking to provide information. There's going to be a complete public information plan that I'm going to receive from that group here at the beginning of October that will result in quite a few actions. There's going to be a mailer that's going to be sent to the nearby area. There's going to be talking directly with impacted businesses, keep them informed on the schedule. And we're also, of course, engaged with city staff. We did have a meeting with them last week to let them know our outreach, our initial outreach plan and what that looks like. And from that meeting, one of the key components that was recited back to ODOT was to make sure that we have a bilingual communication effort with those outreach materials. And then, of course, we have ODOT has its project website that will be supported from the consultant and from local, or I should say ODOT Community Affairs.
And then we have also Trip Check, which is an available website that provides traveler information. And then there's a weekly construction report that ODOT puts together that gets sent out to all parties that subscribe to it. So there's quite an elaborate effort.
Thank you. Please continue working with our staff, and they can help direct you to some agencies that can help with the Spanish translation to make sure that their videos, just so that our constituents are fully aware of what's happening and how these changes are going to be impacting them for the time being. Thank you.
Mark.
Thanks for being here, Jay. So you guys came here, I don't know if you were involved with it at that time or not.
I was not.
City council chose not to sign the MOU then because ODOT would not share with us what the design implications were for certain intersections, and we had a room full of people upset about one of the intersections that's not even in the packet today. So you know, the two intersections, the two corners that are the city property are fine. Those are great. It's, you know, it's our role of making sure that businesses don't get damaged, and then because they're gonna come in and yell at us first, and then we're gonna yell at you, and that's how the thing goes. So what's going on at the southeast corner of Third Street? One that is in the packet is the corner with the restaurant at 13th and Oak, and I can take 3 years to build right away is their front door. So has that owner agreed to this? Are they happy with it? To me, there's just a bunch of non-information, and now you're asking us to sign the MOU, and
I believe that the reason this is coming to you today is that ODOT has completed its property negotiations with all of the affected owners. So Third and Oak being the one that was most visible that we heard about. I believe that ODOT reached an agreement with him actually several months ago, and has, I believe, completed all of the others. Jay's nodding his head so he can give us more detail, but I believe, you know, and the reason I think we got kind of hung up there was ODOT was willing to share the information with council in an executive session, but ODOT was not willing to share it publicly because they considered it a real estate negotiation, and that's why we couldn't.
Is that still true today? Is that why?
But I think all of them are.
But other private intersections are.
Which intersection is not in the packet?
The 3010 is not.
Well, and
Right.
then we could get you all of those agreements.
Yeah, and this memorandum of understanding is specific to properties that ODOT has acquired to perform the work, and then it gets relinquished back to the city. This has nothing to do with temporary easements.
But the packet includes 10 intersections. Some of them are only 2 for the city.
Right, there are descriptors within the exhibits that also talk about temporary easements, but that's, from my understanding, is not the memorandum of understanding is being able to, for ODOT to be able to relinquish the properties that we bought in fee back to the city after completion of the project.
So there's, of the 50 pages, the only thing that's important is River Park and G-Mark.
And actually we took action on those 2 parcels in November of 2023. So those are finished. So today the MOU is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the MOU is about being able to work in the city's right of way.
Correct.
The MOU is about relinquishing the properties that ODOT purchased for the project through its right-of-way negotiations to then relinquish it back to the city after the project is done.
Well, Mark Me is worried that we haven't done the right amount of work to make sure that we're not impacting businesses. Mike's Ice Cream, Egg Harbor, and some of the other ones that and there's going to be held.
Jay, could you speak to the negotiations? Are those completed with all of the affected property owners, all of the?
Yes, yeah, we've certified right away. All the agreements with those individuals have been, or interested parties have been made. So temporary easements, and then of course, permanent acquiring a property needed to perform the work has been completed.
Abigail, I know that things were a little bit fluid right up to meeting time. Can you remind us?
Oh, yeah, and there's just if you choose to move forward, the motion had you donating the parcels, which you've already donated, so it would just be cutting that part of it out. I've given Councilor Stupina a motion that is corrected for that purpose.
And help me understand what isn't happening regarding this motion, for example, 301 Oak.
301 Oak is in other intersections where, that's actually private property. They have already been addressed through the real estate negotiations that ODOT has done. So this MOU was never about that. This was our leverage to make sure that ODOT treated folks fairly and that our business owners felt that they were heard. We withheld the signing of the MOU until we were satisfied that ODOT had reached an amicable agreement with each one of those, which I believe has now happened, and that's why it's coming to you today.
Thank you. That helps clarify some of the confusion that I'm having. How's everybody else doing on this? It's kind of a complicated situation, honestly. Mark, you okay?
Yeah, I trust staff. I don't trust ODOT, but I trust staff.
Sorry, Jay.
Welcome to Hood River J.
Yeah, that's all right. No, I'm here to try to help answer and I most importantly tried to deliver a successful project. And and I just want to make sure that the focus to me is we look at items 1, 2, and 3 on the MOU, which is describes property, and then it says that the state intends to relinquish that property that we had purchased through this project back to, and it calls it the agency, but to the city of Hood River.
All right, because Jay brought that up, I need to remind you that actually was the original reason why we delayed this was a concern that if the project didn't happen, there was no language to revert that property back to the city. We took that to ODOT. They were unable or unwilling to change that language, and we decided at that time to continue moving ahead even without that. So
This was the Saunders point, is that right?
yes, you're exactly right. Good memory.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure she's sad to be missing today's conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Great. I really appreciate Councilor Zennor's comment that our job is to protect the land that the city owns, but also our residents and neighbors and businesses. Like, the curb, we're allowed to take 3 years. Like, the house I own on Montello has no sidewalk and hasn't for weeks and months because, things take time. And so the stroller is like, go in the street. Okay, there is a motion, I think, right?
I move that we authorize the city manager to sign the MOU with ODOT granting temporary easements to ODOT so that they can perform ADA compliance upgrade work to curb ramps.
Moved by Doug. Second by Grant. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, guys.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Chad. Welcome aboard.
We'll see you soon. Yep.
Discussion item, Wine Country Road, Abigail.
Thank you, Mayor. In the time that I've been here, I've heard kind of informal comments a number of times about, we should. Thank you, Councilor Mitchell. That in the time that I've been here, 2+ years, we should change Wine Country. Wine Country got named in a weird way. Let's talk about this, which I've kind of just ignored, but there is a timing factor here of we will be developing the 780 Rand Road housing complex. We hope to break ground in early winter 2025. And many of those, if not all of those units, would be addressed along Wine Country. So if you wish to change that name, now would be that window to do that. So bring you 2 questions. One is, do you want to consider a different name for Wine Country? And if so, either what do you want that name to be or what you want that process to be and what's the next step. So this is the very first time you've talked about it publicly as a, like, I've only ever heard it as an informal piece, but wanted to bring this to daylight today.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Sean, you have a question?
Yes.
Can you come up to the microphone so that the public can, thank you.
Come on up. So, who's that?
I don't want to pry into here. Will you guys be still running the restaurant for a while longer or?
We the sale, it fell through, so after 20 months. Kind
Yep.
of.
So the restaurant is happening? and-
Yep, so we are continuing the restaurant, we have no plans to
Right, great. That's
do
what I wanted-
anything in the future,
That's what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
yeah.
And
Again, I'm coming in. late to this, But why?
You're not late. This is the first conversation.
Well, and there's discussion. Why is there a desire for a name change? I don't really quite understood why that's the case. I don't know who can answer that, but I don't know why this is coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I think just, the discussions in the past have been, why is it called wine country? It's not wine country, there's a lot of other opportunities for what that could be named. That sort of thing, just and especially with 780 Rand Road being developed and the opportunity perhaps to rename it to something that's more fitting towards that. I think that was, sort of the impetus that brought us here. Missing anything, big Mark?
So I was I was on council when we named it, and it was a bit of a mess at the time, because very last second, fire department said there's these little teeny bit of street with the condos on it, this country club, and therefore we can't change that 1,500 feet to just have it continue to be country club. And we were like, wow,
because there would be a Y of country club and country club.
right. And so council at the time was like, well, that, safety is first, and so we're gonna follow the rule. And then someone said, well, I think the city manager said, I think it should be wine country. We didn't have any other choices and we didn't have any discussion. And we said, okay. Given that they're not immediately selling, what I've been thinking is, and I don't like wine country. I don't know that it points to any wine country. I think that it doesn't point to culture besides just the wine. But what my suggestion is for council is that we rename east of Mount Adams now, and when Stonehenge isn't Stonehenge anymore, or they sell it, that we change that piece, because I'm certainly sensitive. They're the only residents on that 1,500 feet of road. They're probably the only driveway that ever could be on that 1,500 feet of road. So I don't see a hurry to change that piece while we decide what the road to the east through the project is, and then whenever something happens in the future, we just continue that name to where Country Club is. That's my suggestion.
I appreciate your suggestion, Councilor Sendler. When the gentleman was giving testimony, it just triggered this memory of me being, I think I was 10 years old. I grew up on what was called Rand Place. And I remember the day where we received a letter from the city that our address was going to change, and that the letter was only in English, it wasn't in Spanish. And so as the gentleman is sharing the story of all the changes that had to happen, it just really triggered this memory of, yeah, I recall what that was like being 10 years old and having to explain to my mom what that was like and all the changes that came with that. So, I think that coming into the meeting fully prepared, yes, let's change it, which I really appreciate Councilor Zandler's suggestion of let's just name east of Mount Adams, and then later on, making a change, just because I completely empathize with the situation. it's just gonna change and that you don't have a say in it. So thank you for bringing that testimony forward.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I think also when this discussion came up, it seemed like the sale of the restaurant was gonna happen at some point, and now that that's not the case, I wouldn't wanna, I mean. I had my address numbers changed. Recently. It was 2 blocks away on the wrong side of the street, and they changed the number to like what it used to be. And still is not correct in all of the databases, you know, I have to call the fire department, all the kind of stuff that we heard earlier. So I'm sympathetic to that as well. I also think, just as a note, in terms of when, you know, there are changes made, you know, to that section. I think it'd be worth discussing whether or not we bring that to the current sort of, working group that's looking to name the name of 780 Grant Road, because I think that they could look cohesively at that. And I think some of the suggestions that Abigail had laid out here are also being considered for there. Would be a good group of stakeholders across the community to make decisions about the name of that as well. But I totally agree with Mark.
Doug, I wanna understand, I know you've been working on
Yeah.
considering names for the project.
Yeah.
And you're saying the project name, the road name, let's like.
Yeah.
coordinate, so we don't have like Mick on the corner of Mac Road, something like that.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right.
Thanks, that's a good idea.
I'm disappointed that puns aren't allowed for street names.
Let the record show, Councilor Mitchell. Is there a motion or direction?
There was a 2-part question. First was, did you want to change the name? And I am hearing that you are interested in changing the name on the east side. And I actually have a quick little map I'll bring up here just as a, if this is from the TSP, so it has lots of other details, but if we look, here's the current wine country. This dotted green going east-west is the area that we'd be talking about, right? That would connect to Rand.
So let's just call it.
Yep.
Yes, everybody, that's what we're talking about.
So
That's the same-
dividing these two and keeping wine country.
Yep,
And
okay.
then, so we're only talking about this piece that is east of
On Adams.
Mount Adams. And that, now what I heard Councilor Stupina say was that we give this to the naming committee and come back for a recommendation. You can do that, or I gave you some suggestions, or you can pick something else, so.
This is actually maybe a subtle point, but we've got the street. They've got the housing.
And the park.
Are we giving them authorization and we're gonna take their name or vice versa? I just thinking this through.
And I believe the building committee actually is making a recommendation to council, right? They are not selecting the name.
That's correct, yeah, it's a recommendation, which, you know, I mean, I think what we asked was to get input from the community, the stakeholders, et cetera, so I think we'd likely choose that name or some version of that name, but yeah, that's the intention, is, you know, they're not dictating necessarily, but yeah, that's who we wanted to make the recommendation.
So that would be, so that group to come back with a recommended name of the street, a recommended building name, and a name of the park.
The park,
'Cause that's the
yeah.
other part that they're working on. So
Yeah,
that'd be
and
3 parts.
in these discussions, you know, there's been front runners, second runners, and I think organic discussions have taken place where it's, you know, if we don't choose this, it'd be nice to name this the park. But then if the street doesn't make sense, you know, that sort of stuff, like, you know, that has come up. But that's not the purview, but they did think, no, what would the street be named, would that conflict, et cetera, so I think it's a good logical place to take it.
And can you carry that information to them so they know that we're considering
Yeah.
Mariposa and. Great,
Yes, absolutely.
great. So the east of Mount Adams, yes, all
Mhm.
thumbs up. And the other question was,
Well, then the next question was, what do you want to name it? But it sounds like Councilor Stupina has suggested that it be delegated to that group.
good, how are the thumbs feeling on that? You like that idea? Glad? Yeah,
Great.
They would see this, it's sort of, here's a.
Yeah, and they were aware that we were having this
Consultation.
conversation tonight. Mhm.
Yeah, and similar names are in discussion around here as well, so.
glad.
I just wanna ask, Pato, I imagine, Pato Avenue. Is that something that, for example, our Fit partners or any of those entities have been consultants? And the reason that I mention this is,
Good question.
long time ago, a business wanted to name their business after something indigenous here in town, but did not consult, and that just really stuck with me, and I just want to make sure that at least folks are aware, and that they too are giving the thumbs up around the third option in our packet. Just to be respectful and that we are bringing community to our decision making.
Thank you for that. Kevin Liberty is our staffer for this, and I'll communicate that to him tomorrow.
Right.
And I had one thing that
Mhm.
Abigail and I talked about from the packet, all four of the names in the packet, the second name in there is all Avenue. I don't know if you guys noticed that. My impression is that Avenue denotes a type of street. I don't know if that type of street is added, what we're referring to in that type of street. This is a conversation we're sharing. And it's in our code that our east-west streets are all have that name, Avenue, and our north-souths are all different. So I don't know if we necessarily want to continue that trend, and that's a more longer-term discussion, or if we want to not have that as a thing.
Thank you, Chris. That's an important. I mean, including the fact that both Oak Street and May Street are not called Avenue.
Yeah, I believe that was most recently updated in 1999, judging from the code, and because there's a long list of roads that were already pre-existing that did not follow that rule. It looks like maybe they set that rule, and there are others as well, like what defines a loop, a parkway. There's a couple others that are not directional in nature, but like a parkway has to end in a park, or a loop has to be a loop. So there are some additional rules there that I did not include in this memo.
So to Grant's question, like, how are we, like, is staff talking about this topic? How does council feel about, like, are we looking to further this homologization or whatever, like, are we trying to make it make sense, or, yeah, no, go ahead.
My understanding is that the second word, whatever you choose, is going to be Avenue because that's in code.
Okay.
This is a longer term discussion that we would need to have to change code.
Great, thank you. Okay,
Okay,
anything else on this topic?
nope, I feel like I've received clear direction. Counselor Stupina, as member of that group, has got direction. Great, thank you all.
Shauna, thanks for coming and really helped the conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Come up here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you've got it.
I just wanted to put it out there, the origin of Wine Country Avenue came when you were talking about doing the 3 separate gateways. And that was the gateway to Wine Country. And so that was where the Wine Country Avenue came in. It wasn't just willy-nilly or kind of out of place.
Yeah.
There really was a reason for it, and I don't remember what the gateway to Fruit Country, is that what this one was? And then the middle one was gateway to
Right.
something else?
I was
Is
gonna
that
say,
still in play?
This is the first I've heard of this exact thing, but I would say that the folks at Felt Creek would suggest that Wine Country is.
Okay, this was, I don't know.
Yeah, and I reviewed the minutes from 2013, and I did not see that the gateway concept listed, so this is new
Yeah.
information for me as well.
I guess I would say that that's perhaps a messaging idea that did not catch fire.
Okay, so that was, yeah, they were gonna develop each of the exits
Sure.
in that.
Right.
I mean, but being a business owner for 25 years, you see lots
Yeah.
of things come and go. And
Yeah, it seemed like that came in with.
yeah, okay, but that's where it came from.
But we
So,
put the third loop, I mean, for
Yeah,
example, that.
so the-
totally caught fire.
So exit 60.
so exit, yeah, that was gateway to.
That one would be coffee.
Thank
Okay,
you.
anything else on this topic?
Not for me.
Goal setting out here.
Great. Since we had a fairly short agenda today, I just thought I would throw in an update for you. I've been working with Sarah Singer Wilson Consulting, SSW, to plan your goal setting that you remember recently we've made every 2 years. So this is kind of a big opportunity. I know you have some pent up interest and ideas. I've been including that on your quarterly updates for the council work plan. But wanted to just check in and let you know we have kind of already started with the public engagement piece. So it started in August. In the past, we've done a very I think a little bit complicated survey in which we ask people, what are your ideas around housing and what are your ideas around infrastructure and transportation? This year, we thought we would go forward with just one question. What do you want, city council to consider for its 2024 to or 2025-26 work plan? And so We started that in August. We did it at the last first Friday. Councilors Van Miller and Rivera were there. We, I think, received 30 responses that day. And so that, I'm looking to you, like, is that good public engagement? Are there other things you'd like to see? The other thing I'd like to offer up is to ask other agencies if they would like to send you, you know, here's what their priorities are, or here's what they're working on or focusing on. Each time I've been here, the Energy Council has sent you a memo, but they're the only ones who ever have, and I wanted to maybe issue that invitation to others, just to give you that opportunity to incorporate public engagement. And then you can see that I've got a timeline. In the past, city staff have always been observers, but not really participants. I would like this year to make the leadership team equals with you in the conversation, and really bring their expertise. So I'm looking to work with Sarah to have a pre-meeting with department heads and leadership team where we identify some priorities that maybe you aren't aware of because they don't really rise to your policy level, but are critical things that we're working on. And then prepare you a memo of like, here's things for consideration when you move into your discussion. So we can stop there, and then I can also talk about a little bit more logistics. I could talk about this forever, so stop me when you're ready to talk.
So there's these bullet points laid out. How do folks feel about those? Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I think the context for other agencies is important. I think the context for staff is also important. So I'm hip to both of those ideas to help make decisions.
Knowing, of course, these are your goals, like.
Yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, that
Ultimate
one
decision.
informs, you know,
Yeah.
and I
Very
respect that. I think it would also be helpful for incoming counselors, you know, to have that perspective as well. They're coming in kind of fresh. I remember when Grant and I went through this not too long ago, and it's, you know, luckily we were pretty attuned to what was going on, but you know, it's a big insurmountable sort of amount of effort to get to organize your brain, I think, in the first meeting like that. So I think that understanding a little bit of the context of the city's priorities, you know, not having been part of quarterly updates, budget season, et cetera, would be helpful for, you know, any new people coming in.
Two questions. One is Megan and I not being included on December 7th, a date that goes down in infamy, is fine, I think, but are we gonna, do we get a little bit of space on the Friday night thing to say, here's our parting wisdom kind of thing? I think that's.
I don't remember us deciding, and that's not listed here, which way we're going on it. Where does
What I have suggested is that December 6th, which is a half day, it's just Friday afternoon, and I know this is for all of you, need to take time off, and I really appreciate that. Is the incoming and the current council, really that knowledge transfer, some agreements and team building, and then some celebration of the accomplishments of the last couple of years. But that's where I'm seeing really that knowledge transfer. And then the next day being really more focused on the, you know, what do we want to see in going forward in the next 2 years?
And then my other question
Yeah.
is, in some years during this, we've let public testify and certainly attend.
Oh, it's a public meeting for sure.
So is it gonna, so I guess you guys will have to talk about the testify part. It's a
Yeah.
public meeting, you'll have to.
I have a recommendation for you,
So
which would be, we're gonna collect a lot of testimony ahead of time by having the one question, and anyone can submit, you know, comments to the city recorder, but I would, you know, it's a special meeting, so I would encourage you to limit public comments at the meeting itself.
And we have a lawyer man on the phone, but I don't think we must let people attend. We do not must let them talk. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, and we will, yeah, and we will definitely stream the second day, like that feels like the big policy day. I don't know about that first day. If I'm looking at, maybe I can find a different location. It might be hard to stream that one, but it would definitely be open to the public regardless.
Other comments on this?
You know, I think when it comes to, I like the idea of connecting with agencies here in the Gore or in the city and partners. But potentially having them support us if there are any of their, whether it's their patients or the clients, to have another opportunity and maybe even additional support on what's important to individuals and potentially filling things out. I know that I'd be happy to help any individual that would need any support. Especially when it comes to Spanish, there were quite a few individuals at the last first Friday that were Spanish speaking, and it was great to be able to support them and include their what they wish to see for our work plan. So I would maybe just ask if, in addition to agencies, if those agencies would be willing to support
Yeah,
their clients or whomever.
that's a great point. Like,
Customers.
I thought at the next meeting, I will bring each of you like a quota. Let's say I give you 25 cards and it'll be your job to go out and like collect 25 comments and bring them back. But we could certainly do that with other agencies and say, you know, One Community Health and Next Door, and like, will you also like, here's a stack of cards, will you collect them and get them back to us?
Back to the comment a minute ago, I think my first choice would be that on Friday night, the incoming electeds mostly listen.
Mhm.
And then on Saturday, Megan and Mark attend and mostly listen, but don't attend. I would hate to lose that's like a sixth of your remaining contribution. I don't wanna, that would be my opinion.
It's up to you guys.
I would agree. I value the wisdom, the knowledge, all the above.
Great, thanks.
Other things on this topic?
Great, well then next step will be someone from Sarah Singer Wilson's staff. Will be working with Jen to get you a link to schedule your phone call or Zoom meeting with her, so. Sarah and I both worked at the city of Tualatin many years ago, so I know her well. She's a very accomplished facilitator. She's done dozens, if not hundreds, of these kind of sessions, and I think we're gonna be really pleased with our experience and with our final result. Cool,
Thanks.
thank you all.
Stay right there, city manager comments, unless you're no.
Yeah, I don't have any updates for you, but I did want to note, in October, our meeting will be on Tuesday because that first, the October 14th, I think, is Indigenous Peoples' Day, so we'll be bumped a day, and then the same thing happens to us in November. Veterans Day this year falls on the 11th is a Monday, so we'll have a meeting on a Tuesday as well. So as you're planning out your schedules, please note you have 2 Tuesday meetings coming up.
And a fifth Monday next week.
That's right, and a 5th Monday next week. You want to hang out? Awesome, but it will not be a meeting.
Do we have a second meeting in November?
We do.
So it's like right at Thanksgiving.
I don't have the date here. Let me
Okay,
check.
pull that up, I was thinking about this. So the 4th Monday in November is the 25th, which is Thanksgiving week.
I think,
Or
is Thanksgiving the last? Oh, it's the 28th.
Thursday, the 28th.
Yeah.
So.
You could decide now if you want to have a meeting, not have a meeting,
folks
or
like your plans and like, I know where I'll be in New Jersey.
can ask the city recorder to make
You'll be,
a quorum check.
going, Mark, Gladys. Sorry, but shaking head.
Yeah, no. I would rather not meet.
Okay, I know that,
I'll be here, but I can be gone if you want me
I know that often, we, for example, will not meet on Christmas Eve. So can we afford like to skip 2 holidays? Right, the 23rd of December, I'm guessing we'll choose to skip. The fact that some of us are traveling doesn't mean we don't like have work to do in November, so it feels a little unobvious that we would skip the 25th. Maybe we would need to reschedule or something, but thoughts on that, people?
I guess I'd rather meet in November and not meet in December if
Yeah.
it came down to it.
Yeah, thank you. Others thoughts on that? We don't have to decide right now, but soon.
Well, I appreciate that heads up. We can look at.
Yeah, I would agree, in terms of the way that my work shakes out.
Yeah.
You know, come out, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and historically, we've done usually one in December, and we may have worked in, November before, keep it up, I guess.
Leadership team meets tomorrow. We'll take a look at our forecast and see how critical that meeting slot might be.
Thank you.
Great. That was it for my
That's
update.
it. All right, committee reports, Grant.
Region 1, the ODOT meets, I think, next week. I know. Every once in a while, I think it's next week, so I should do that. You know, ways, I don't think I'll, well, I know I won't be able to meet on November 12th. I'll be in the air at that. Anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, Regional Solutions met, had our first meeting on September 12th. It was out in the Dalles. I joined online. I do have some homework that I need to give to you all, so I'll follow up individually and send an email. Nate sent out a survey to a couple of the members. What are some of the priority issues that arise? You know, housing came up quite often, transportation, daycare, all of those sorts. So the homework task that was assigned for each member was to, for me, for example, to share that information with all of you all, have you rank it, what are your top three, and then pass that information on to Nate. And then he would then pass that information on to the governor for any potential infrastructure funding, any sort of supports on her end to help her understand some of the barriers throughout the state. MCAC had its annual fundraiser. It was nice to see Abigail and other individuals there. It was a fun night. MCAC is doing some great work, and it was really neat to see some of the testimonials from individuals who were houseless and rehoused, and the empowerment. I'll grab those videos and I'll share them with you all individually as well. I think it's really powerful and continues to at least motivate myself and others on the board. We need similar supports in Hood River. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, the point in time survey does show that there has been a drop in those individuals that were houseless and now are housed. Having a home is really one of the foundational pillars for someone's social determinants of health. And if they have housing, you know, they have other supports because there are individuals there that are helping them navigate what those other resources are. So really grateful for that organization and Kenny and the team for all the work that they do.
Thanks for your service on that board, Gladys. Mark?
None.
None this week.
And we'll get you plugged in, Meister. I have a few things. I attended the first of the Hood River 101 in Spanish sessions. It was super robust and fun and exciting and interesting. Staff did just a great job organizing and presenting. There was lots of fun Spanish, English happening and learning about what's the Guatemalan word for yard sign and stuff like that. And I brought my banjo, as I do, and singing "This Land Is Your Land," looking in the face of first-generation immigrants is a very powerful thing. I've sung that song a lot of times, but never like that before. That was very cool. So I'm really glad we're doing it. And I was telling folks about it at Pie with the Mayor, and people were very excited about that. So yesterday, Pie with the Mayor here. Elena made some cool signs. Thank you, Elena. Abigail came in on Sunday on her day off. Thank you. Continues to, I think, just set such a nice tone. Like, you know what? There's elections and there's chain of command, but if you want to have pie with the mayor, you can. So I had a conversation with a couple constituents and heard about a person who's certainly in the running for the worst next door neighbor ever. That was quite interesting. But that marches on. Yesterday, after that, I scurried down to the waterfront and went out on the Marine Deputy's boat, which was super interesting. For example, kiteboard, wing foil, windsurfer, none of those is a dues paying boat. None of those has a little tag. It's where the money comes from to have that enforcement search and rescue function. So we have like an insane amount of users, but they're not represented in the funding stream. And in fact, when the Marine Board came out to visit, they had the like Hood River thing that each of us has seen, which is like, whoa, there's a lot of people on the river. Like, remember, like I said in the memo, right? Like, so it's an unusual use case we have here. Of course, the sheriff has no money. It's a combination funding of the port and the sheriff and the Marine Board. So we are very lucky to have our users served by that safety feature. And we're not paying any of it. And I'm sure somebody's going to come asking, but It was very useful. And I rescued my daughter's friend's mom from her broken rig. That was cool. Anyway, that's a thing that happens in our community. I just emailed the mayor of White Salmon to see if she'll do a selfie with me in the middle of the bridge on October 6th. I don't know if you guys are going to walk across. I did hear the brilliant comment of, you know, we don't celebrate the 100th anniversary of our water system by turning off the water for 2 hours. So this is certainly a topic of discussion. And I've heard secondhand about the disagreements about it, but the port is closing it and having a celebration, and I plan to walk on the bridge. I ran into the governor's staffer today, and he halfway, you know, sort of gallows humor commented that the memos continue to fly back and forth about the Hood River Mosier dumpster fire, where it's not about to reopen. I mean, there's benzene and lead spewing into the air. And if we dump water on it, then we have toxic wastewater to remediate. So, I mean, I know that it's terrible for Mosier. I know that it's terrible for the bikers. I know that the Columbia Gorge Marathon's coming up. I know that the CASA fundraiser's coming up. So it's bad, but I'm continuing to chime in on our needs. My equity advisors meet on Thursday night. Jackie and Abigail have been helping me get that kind of firmed up to be in compliance and whatnot. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And HR Sandy pinged me, Abigail's eval is coming right up, due November 1st. So this is the first shot across our collective bow. I will be following up and getting you guys the tool, which I will request you getting turned around in just a few weeks, reasonable amount of time, so that we can provide important feedback to our important CEO. That's all. Council comments. Ben.
I'm starting my departmental tours with tomorrow, I believe, with finance. Is that right, Abigail? Yep. So that'll be great. We got those scheduled off and on for the next month and a half or so, and I will be attending the Hood River 101 in Spanish this Wednesday at the wastewater treatment plant. We're doing double duty down there to just, never been down there before to see how it works. So looking forward to that. As I said in my council interview, I think the Civics 101 is a great program, me being a former journalist and just having people, be interested in how government works and all those different things is great. And to have, was it 8 people, right? Was it the first one?
At the class.
Yeah. To have people interested is awesome. On a more depressing note, I saw a lovely little article in the New York Times. You probably also may have seen that. It's a little bit, I was kind of confused about the data. Not that I'm disagreeing with it. In fact, if anything, it's they're underselling it. But basically, it was an article about the top 10 most expensive towns in the United States with populations between 10,000 and 50,000, which obviously, we are not at 10,000. And they had, it was based on average or median home value, I believe. And it had ours pegged at $492,000, which if any of you like me who are renters who have this pipe dream of owning a house in Hood River perhaps someday, that doom scrolling Zillow, you will not find a home below $492,000 in the city limits. Pretty much impossible unless it's like maybe occasionally I'll see a small condo, down by 84. That's pretty much it. So I question their data, but I don't question the reality of it. And I don't know, it's always just very disheartening to see stuff like that, and definitely underscores, we all know this, but I'll say it, how much of a crisis our housing situation is in this town.
I spoke to Abigail this week about collecting data on short-term rentals, so we're making progress there. again, for the express purpose of just understanding impact, should there have to be another change that was made. I think there's, I've received some emails from constituents. I think people are a little confused as to why, which we all knew, why we made the last change that we did. So it's, I think everybody should be talking about it and try to explain to everybody out there so that people understand the context of why that change was made, in regards to, defending ourselves, lawsuits, et cetera. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about it, but yeah, tell your friends, tell them to tell their friends. Also, this is a bit cart before the horse, but there continue to be complaints about Industrial Street regarding parking, which is somewhere that I spend a lot of my time, as you all know. I cycle down there every day. I'm very privileged to be able to cycle to where I work from the Heights. And I think that as we start to continue to see people that are concerned about parking, especially that area, 7th, parts of Columbia, becoming very, very clogged. We need to remember that the people parking there are service industry workers that are there very early in the morning. Industrial Streets, largely tofurkey workers that likely can't afford to pay for a permit, right? So it could be said that the employers downtown should be paying for permit parking for their employees. I don't think that will happen. I think they will pass it down to their employees. Just because everyone's, trying to keep the margins what they are, right? So I don't have a specific action, but I'd like you all to think about that as we think about we're hitting 85% here, 85% there. If we put in all the places I just mentioned, meters, where are those people going to park? And can they afford to park in this community? I hate to be the next Vail where we don't have anybody that's willing to come work here, because now, I have to drive 60 miles round trip to go to Hood River to work a low paying job. Now I have to pay for parking that's X amount of dollars per month because they took away all the parking that we had. So if you're also hearing, like I am, from certain business owners, et cetera, that are impacted by that, please keep that context in your mind as well. Because I think that there will be a discussion that we'll have in the future that will need that perspective.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
A few things. One is we lost a couple people related to the city recently. Stephen Ford, our commercial real estate person, passed away, and Josh Siva, who's a downtown business owner, and he was someone that was always in the audience, and he was very positive, and he passed away both recently. So that's too bad. So nod to them. Events wise, there's a bunch of stuff going on. I did the puncture vine thing. I know some people tried. I would encourage you guys as counselors to go to do that. It's sort of you're working with, we had 10 people the last time, and you're just, borrowing Band-Aids from each other and talking about the city and stuff. So it's pretty nice. And then we have Hops Fest and then Harvest Fest. And then, that these are places where us being ambassadors actually is a positive difference, I think. And then lastly, Lieutenant Chili sends us a monthly police report summary, and it grew out of council before that saying, we want to know what's going on, and the chief having to spend like hours building this big spreadsheet that we never talked about at council, and it was always in the packet. And then so it evolved to this, and I guess I would ask, what are we asking them to do? I read it every email, but I hardly ever provide questions back to them and stuff. So I don't think it's a emergency, but I guess I would ask you guys to examine those kind of reports that staff is doing and sort of say, it's worth it, or we'd like it to be a little different, or something like that, because I have a sense that he spends a couple hours every one of those reports doing that.
Are those then published in the paper? The same report, or do we get a different report?
I'm not sure. It's very similar. I think you might get a little bit more detail than what the newspaper gets.
Yeah, it just to get a lot of context, yeah, yeah.
And I got my hours, so I am gonna graduate as a master gardener this year, so. I was really worried I wasn't gonna get my volunteer hours in. But I did.
stop weeding at our house, though.
No, that is true. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mark.
So does that mean in your official retirement that you're gonna start making us like pickled asparagus and all of that, or? Um, thank you, Counselor Zenmiller. I look forward to that. The police report that you brought up, I do find it helpful, and there have been on occasion where I actually do follow up with staff of like, help me understand the process for this, if this is identified. I even recall at one point openly stating the conversation about when an individual is shoplifting at Rosar's, for example, and that was something that was brought up, and that did come out of that. So for me personally, I do really value to better understand. I also track the DUI rates that are on there as well. So for me personally, I do appreciate it, but I do recognize that it could be a lot of time for Sergeant Shaley. So if there's a way to simplify it for him, I'm not sure, would be open to that as well. I too was going to bring up the New York Times article. I too am a renter. I too am wishing on Zillow, like maybe today's the day, and that doesn't happen. So it is a constant reminder that housing is just a crisis nationwide, but that it doesn't feel good to see our name on that list of really expensive places to live. The comment brought up by Counselor Stepina about the parking, I wonder if maybe Tofurky is one of the first businesses that receives those cat passes to potentially support with additional parking. As we do make those available to downtown employees, not stating that that's the solution to all of it, but that could be some support for individuals. Bummed to have missed out my opportunity to pick some weeds with Counselor Zenmiller. Unfortunately, my work has picked up and I was busy. I look forward to attending some of the festivals that are coming up and connecting with individuals, and hopefully we'll get to see you all on the bridge.
Grant.
Thanks. I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I'll see you guys, a bunch of you guys at the bridge. Thanks to all the taxi companies and everybody that was here today and provided us the information and data they provided for free and took time out of their schedule to give us that feedback. I understand that they were also busy doing all that, so no small task for us to ask them to take the time and effort out of their day to do that for us to make a more informed decision. Regarding another large piece of infrastructure, the bridge, the one that doesn't exist yet. They received a RAISE grant to address multimodal transport, pedestrians, bikes, that sort of thing. And what they would like, we would like to do is partner, but part of the condition of the RAISE grant is to work with the adjoining cities in addressing the transportation network and needs in implementing, putting those elements on the bridge, pedestrian and bike routes, and integrating it with the adjoining facilities. So their staff is going to reach out to us in hooking it up with our TSP and any needs in the future, and we can use that report in pursuing future grants and potential awards in future capacity needs and other ways that people can get around town or across the river, say to work on an e-bike if they aren't parking downtown, or they live across the river and don't want to necessarily drive anymore because there's no way to get across now without driving. So that's an award that was just inked, just signed off on and agreed to. So that's some work that's coming our way with that.
Grant, I don't know if this is a fit or not, but
I knew somebody who participated just before COVID in a pilot to give like 10 people permission to e-bike across the bridge, to like see how that would like work. Is there any chance it would enhance our competitiveness to get this grant by moving ahead on that again? That's just an idea.
We already have a grant. So this raise grant we already have, and it's the thing right now is working with the Benjamin White Salmon and Hood River staff to integrate with our local transportation networks. And that's it.
A requirement of the grant we've already gotten.
Yeah, we don't need any pilot projects or anything like that.
But thank you.
In the future, if there are other grants or awards that become available, then that's where that discussion could come up.
Thank you.
I don't know how easily it would be to ride an e-bike across the bridge today. I imagine it would not be fun.
Depends on the tire width, I think.
Yeah.
I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I
Go ahead.
I would like to join you on Thursday, your equity group. That's it. I think
Great.
we talked about it.
All welcome.
Yep.
We are adjourned.
Behind you in that little box is the actual gas.